I don't blame teachers, but I do blame the educational system for failings to prepare us for the future that we have yet to see. I was born in an era where we were taught that if you work hard, if you get your head down and do the research, then you might be capable of getting some good grades, sufficient to take you into further and subsequently adult education. And ironically, being able to make that grade and moving from GCSE and O-levels through to A-levels and to degree, how ironic was that the same script was being read again and again. If you work hard, if you do the research, if you really put your mind to it, you might be able to get sufficient grades and qualifications to get a job. And ironically, moving from the world of education into the world of commercial enterprise, how interesting it is that the same dialogue continues to go on a day-to-day basis. If you work hard, if you do what's expected of you, you might get the chance of a promotion. You see, the whole problem with the system is the fact that it teaches us to be reliant on the system. And yet, a most recent study done by both De Montfort University and Harvard University between 2015 and 2017 depicted that more than 50% of technical-based careers will be project-based rather than salary-based by the end of 2020. Perhaps before we start talking about some of the careers that you ought to train for that don't even exist yet, it might be worthwhile at least discussing briefly some of the careers that we've recently trained for that are likely to become extinct even before you're ready to draw your pension. Over the last 15 to 20 years, we've seen a significant decline in the amount of people in either the manufacturing industries, predominantly in the car manufacturing industry, where over the last 15, 20 years, so many jobs have been replaced by either computers or machinery. And interestingly enough, it's only taken the last few years with the introduction of Alexa and Dot in order for us to be able to see a decline in the amount of requirement for secretaries or PAs and legal secretaries and paralegals. Interestingly enough, it was only earliest today that I was rehearsing this speech and able to dictate it into my smartphone and being able to get a complete, grammatically correct transcription being able to be generated by the palm of my hand without the need of any further help and support. Likewise, there are currently 20 million people worldwide that still work in the textile industry. And yet again, the introduction of knitting bots and knitting machines and sewing machines and the whole manufacturing industry that's moved into automation that sees a significant decline in the future of people in this industry also. Interestingly, before we started today, everyone was asked to be able to switch their smartphone either off or to silent. And the chances are that the camera in your phone is probably far greater than the camera of a professional photographer only a few short years ago. And again, the demise of Kodak in the last decade has been a demonstration of how much technology has taken over and the lack of understanding of the needs to be able to keep up. Furthermore, interestingly enough, your smartphone will also be responsible for the live streaming. And as we start to see more and more and more people live streaming of events from around the world, there'll be a significant decline in that semi-professional, politically incorrect or politically biased journalism that so far we've become so used to. As email has replaced the letter, and as Amazon drone replaces the courier, we will see a significant decline in these industries also, with Amazon having spent over $100 million in the last 4 years looking at how to be able to automate drone technologies. And interestingly enough, as the list goes on with regards to Google Voice now being able to take an order for pizza, and being able to take simple orders over the phone and sound like a human. It's demonstrated the ability to be able to take answering machine messages and do away with things like telesales. Disappointingly, we've also become quite a throwaway culture, as opposed to the repair or restoration. And again, we're going to continue to see a slow decline in the demand and need for watch repairers, jewellers, cobblers, as we continue to simply throw things away and start again. Thankfully, the only positive about a career on the decline is that of traffic wardens or car park attendants. Again, as we moved towards automated or driver-free transport or shared automation, there'll be less of a requirement or an ability to be able to illegally park, or the needs to be able to have someone to help you park at all. And again, the biggest decline that we've seen over the last few years, and certainly over the next 5 years, is going to be on things like train drivers, tram drivers, navigators for both ships and aircraft, and even agricultural machinery. It was less than a year ago that I was at a local village fete and stood in wonder as I was introduced to this huge, great combine harvester with GPS technology. Its abilities to be able to get to a field and to be able to measure the size and shape in field and the density of crop and be able to completely combine the field without even the use of a driver. There are a multitude of careers that we've previously trained for that, unless you're as old as me or older and you're looking for retirement in the next 5 or 10 years, it's not something that I advocate as a career to be passed down to your kids, as they are likely to be able to meet the dinosaurs of the past and the museum of yesterday. However, I don't want to be able to make this TED Talk something of regret, of dismal news of what's not yet to come. I'd far sooner share with you some of the things that are yet to progress. I don't want to give any more weight to the skeptics of the future that simply turn around and say that robots are taking all of our jobs. Because in actual fact, the statistics are quite the opposite. You see, for every job that we notice is in decline, there is a multitude of new jobs on the horizon of things that are yet to come. So perhaps we ought to talk about some of the things that are happening right now of careers on the progression. The great news is that as of today, there are just over 7 billion people on the planet. And yet it is projected that by 2050, there'll be 9 billion people on the planet. And by 2100, 11 billion people on the planet. And ironically, more people means more peoples to sell to. And therefore, there will be a continual increase in the demand for people to work in the sales industry and in sales technology, understanding and helping people to understand as to the variety of different options and availabilities that there are to them. Likewise, there will also be a massive increase in the demand for not just food and agriculture, but smart food. The abilities to be able to generate clean food at the point where it is required to minimize waste, and to help to try and combat the 800 million people worldwide that are currently recorded as living in poverty and starvation. Likewise, as we grow in population, there'll be a continued growth in the need for more formal and strategic education. However, in the last few years, we've also seen this new fusion and a complete new industry being generated, referred to as edutainment. The importance and the ability for all of us to be able to continue to learn, but to learn in a format of our choosing and preference. Interestingly, Google and YouTube collectively have almost 2 billion hits a month. And yet collectively, the most commonly typed in phrase starts with the word, "How do I?" And thankfully, we already know of the promotion in schools of STEM-based education for science, technology, engineering and maths. And this will continue to be on the increase in the years to come, particularly for those working in both interpersonal, cognitive and system-based skills. However, there's also going to be a huge demand and increase for people to work in medicine. Not only in traditional medicine and to be able to service a larger population, but also in the needs to be able to help combat some of the most horrific injuries and illnesses that we continue to see blight our population on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis. The massive need to be able to understand more about diabetes, about dementia, about cancer, are going to be huge growth industries as we continue to move forward. However, the biggest growth so far is going to be that of technology and the importance that technology is going to play in our day-to-day lives. A 37% projected increase. That's an increase of more than 4.2 billion people over the next 10 years working as developers of either developers of technology or developers of ideas and the implementers of those developments. It's a huge growth industry. Likewise, we're going to see a massive growth in the technology being introduced to medicine. Medical automation and organ limb development as we continue to be able to move forward and being able to move bits of body around to be able to replace broken parts. Interestingly enough, I was reading an article in the Lancet only a few weeks ago about a Bluetooth pill that you can now swallow that sits in your gut and is linked to an app that gives you an accurate readout of your blood sugars in order to be able to know as to whether you're likely to be affected by diabetes. Something that will simply dissolve in 28 days and have to be repeated. Technology and medicine are fusing together like never before. And if you've got any interest in industries such as this, you are on a winner for the next 10, 15, 20 years ahead. What I found most startling of all the research I've conducted, of the jobs of now that are going to grow most significant in the next 5, 10, 15 years, is that of waste management. I've already alluded to the fact that this generation particularly have become a throwaway generation rather than being able to repair or restore. And there's never going to be a bigger demand for the ability to be able to recycle or to be able to break down and to reuse the parts that we otherwise throw away to try and prevent some of the most catastrophic damage that we're doing to our planet by simply sending things to landfill or shipping it elsewhere and believing that it's okay. These are some of the careers that already exist that we need to be able to give considerations to. However, there are lots more with regards to the things that are yet to come. The move away from electricity and gas and nuclear fuel and the move towards solar and wind and wave technology. The importance of cryptocurrency and the movement away from cash as we move towards data security and data importance. The ability to be able to have smart technology and smart architects to be able to build into our homes the technology that we are becoming so used to on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis. And so many more with regards to drone and drone command and the ability to be able to have automation that works for us and with us as we wear it and we start to absorb it into our bodies as we move into the future. As I close today, I want to be able to share with you the 17 strategic goals for global sustainable development as advertised and depicted by the United Nations. These 17 issues are the 17 biggest problems that the world currently face in order to be able to guarantee human sustainability on this planet. And my questions to each and every one of you is, which career are you going to choose that's going to be able to support the sustainability of our future? For the skeptics amongst us, I simply say this: the only constant in life is that of change. Thank you.